What up, mathletes? Welcome back to Dr. Math Studios. We're in front of a live studio audience, and today we will be looking at factoring the difference of squares. Here we go. Alright, mathletes, so like we said, we're going to look at factoring the difference of two squares. Oops, forgot the S, I wrote it in white. And this is our formula that we're going to be using. Something squared minus something squared. Whenever we have this situation, we're going to factor just as follows. Let's dive in. Alright, let's see what's going on here. Alright, so according to our little definition there, here's the idea. I'm going to rewrite this. Alright, so what I want is something squared minus something squared. Alright. The big picture, something I'm not telling you that you always need to look for. Alright, we talked about this in the last videos. If you missed that video, click here. Not just kidding, nothing's there. But anyways, in the last videos, we always made sure that we factored out the GCF. If you don't have a GCF, then you move forward. If you do have a GCF, factor it out. Alright. So what squared gives me 49? Alright, so if you heard the person breathing behind you, they said 7. And you ask yourself that same question for 100. What squared gives you 100? And we all know that's 10. And x squared gives me x squared. Alright, so using our definition upstairs, this is our A and this is our B. So now all we're going to do is substitute these values into our formula. Alright, so wherever we saw A, we put 7, plus wherever we see our B, we're going to go ahead and plug in 10x. Alright, there's our first factor. There's our first mother factor. And we have the second factor. It says A minus B. So our A is 7 minus our B term, which is 10x. So we have 7 minus 10x. And you're always welcome to use this formula, but this is an easy way for me to think about this. All right. So if this makes sense, that's great. But again, my thinking process here is I ask myself, what number squared gives me 49? Well, 7. So 7 and 7. And then what number times itself, right? What squared gives me 100x squared? Well, 10x and 10x. And then we just slap a plus and a minus in front of them, right? And here we get our factors. All right. And if we were to multiply this, the reason we need that plus and the minus is because those middle terms will cancel out, because one will be a positive and the other will be the same, but it'll be negative, and they'll cancel each other out. All right, so here's example 1 of factoring using the difference of squares method. All right, so let's take a look at example 2 in a few seconds.
2,000 years later.
All right, so whenever you begin any factoring fight, you always want to identify how many terms do I have here. All right, so we have 2 terms, right? And we have a subtraction in the middle. So right away I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to use the difference of squares. But notice that last word, squares. We have to make sure that these are perfect squares. So let's go ahead and let's see if those are perfect squares. So here's the big question. Can I take the square root of the first term? And can I take the square root of the second term? If so, these are perfect squares. All right, so if I take the square root of 9y to the 4th power, I get 3. And when you're taking the square root of the variable, what you do is you take half of that exponent. So you get 3y squared. So that one's a perfect squared. And 25 we know is a perfect squared because the square root of 25 is just 5. So right away, you have your A and your B term. And remember, when we're factoring, the order doesn't matter. We have an A minus B and an A plus B. So now let's just substitute those terms into our definition. So we're left with 3y squared minus 5, right? Because that's our a minus b. And then our 3y squared plus 5, which is our a plus b. And the last thing you're always going to check for is, can I factor this further? Because you might say, oh wait, I have a square and I have a negative here, but notice the 3 and the 5 are not perfect squares. So that's going to be your red light. That's telling you, okay, this is where I stop. Because I have a lot of students, they just don't know when to stop because they really don't know what they're looking for. So make sure you're very careful in knowing when to stop. All right, mathletes, so hopefully that all made sense. And as you could hear, it's time for you to practice. So I have problems number 1 and 2 right here for you. And to check your answer, make sure you hit that link in the description and I'll take you to my page so you could check your answer. And it's going to be right under factoring the difference of squares. I'll see you in the next video.